Hello and welcome to this episode of Speak PR. This is a podcast for business owners to learn how to use technologies and tools for getting noticed. My name is Jim James and today we're going to talk about social listening. I'm talking with Sophie Clark of TalkWalker, and it's amazing how they can use AI to help companies and brands to understand what's being said about them across all channels, and not just in text but also photographs and in video. Now, TalkWalker is one of the leading companies in the social listening, and they've kindly agreed to share with us more about the company and how the technology works. So Sophie Clark is joining us on the mic from Luxembourg. So tell me a little bit about TalkWalker.
Our headquarters are in Luxembourg, but obviously we operate all over the world. But actually, we've been around for almost 10 years now. So, so in that sense, we're quite an established player in the social listening market. So social listening is just really a way of tracking and breaking down the conversations that are happening online. And obviously, these days, there are so many different conversations happening online that sometimes it's quite hard to kind of manage them and break them down and kind of really understand how to analyze them, I guess. And so that's where a social listening platform like TalkWalker can really help, particularly obviously if you're a brand, because it's a great way of specifically tracking the conversations that are happening around your brand, or perhaps the industry that you're in, you want to kind of open up new opportunities for your business, and you just want to understand kind of how the industry is growing and developing and discovering new opportunities there. And also, I mean, particularly at the moment, probably what is a kind of a crucial way to use social listening is around perhaps crisis management. Because obviously at the moment there's a lot going on. There are potentially some negative conversations happening around certain brands. So if you're using a social listening tool like TalkWalker, you can kind of track and flag those conversations quickly and perhaps deal with them before they get out of control.
Yeah.
One area that so we can help with is around sentiment of conversations as well. So that's where you can really kind of track if there are more negative conversations happening around your brand, and you can dig a bit deeper that way.
And so a couple of quick questions come to mind. One is, is it only in English, or are you tracking Mandarin, Spanish, all the different languages?
Yeah, I think at the moment we track 187 different languages.
Good heavens. Right, well, that's probably enough, isn't it, really?
Yeah, so it's definitely a global tool in that sense.
Nice.
And I think as well, in terms of kind of the AI around sentiment analysis, I think it's pretty spot on in most of those languages as well, in terms of being able to gain the accuracy around the sentiment. So yeah. And
then how does it work? So if I have a brand or a client, do I put in some keywords and you search for that, or am I looking for what's trending and plug into that? Which way is it working?
Yeah, I mean, you can do it either way, really. So I suppose it really depends what your aim is in terms of social listening. So if it's really around perhaps brand protection or understanding your brand position in the market, you would probably search by your brand. Okay. So that would be just obviously kind of the name of your brand. Obviously, there's a lot of some brands will have kind of different ways of, or people will talk about it in different ways. So you can search all the terms that people might be using around your brand. We also have image and video recognition as well. Wow. So you can search by your brand logo to see whether...
And what would you do? You'd upload your logo, would you? You'd upload your logo?
That's something that we are able to do. So we have a library, basically, of logos already. Obviously, our clients, if their logo isn't in our database, they contact us and we can add it. But just generally, we have a big library of different brand logos. So even if obviously you're not searching for your own brand, you can still search for other brand logos. So for example, if you wanted to do competitor analysis, you might want to be, if you're Coca-Cola and you want to see how Pepsi's doing, you can also search, search Pepsi and Pepsi logo and see how they compare. So So you would basically, from a brand engagement or kind of brand perception element, you could type in your brand, search image, so see how your brand logo is being used in conversations, and you might find that it's popping up in places that you didn't know, perhaps in a good way, perhaps in a bad way, and then in that case you can kind of take steps to rectify that and make sure you're not having any kind of negative sentiment towards your brand.
So what do you track in terms of channels?
So we track obviously all the main social channels, and we can also track essentially any content that is out there in the public domain. We're able to track it. So it's all the social channels, media, blogs, kind of.
But if it's media behind a paywall, for example, then so some more and more publishers have gone down that route. So say The Economist or The Times is a subscription. What happens to that content? Are you able to track that as well?
So that's a bit more challenging, I think. If I'm completely honest, I need to look into that one a bit more as well on my side. My understanding is that it would track any mentions that are obviously a lot of services that are behind a paywall. They kind of give you the snippet that is publicly available. So if there's any mention of that in that freely available snippet, you will be able to discover that. But in terms of then reading the rest of the article, potentially not. Right.
And then it's from a sort of a repeat refresh, if you like. Is this happening sort of once a day, or is it a continuous search?
It's in real time. So it's continuously pulling information that's out there on the internet whenever you search. So it is really, you can track your brand in real time. Yeah.
And then in terms of from a dashboard perspective, what am I going to be seeing if I put my brand? We work with INEOS, for example, as EASTWEST PR. We've been helping the new Grenadier 4x4 launch in Asia. So what would I be seeing if I use this? And we've got coverage in Indonesia, Bahasa Indonesia, in Vietnam, Malaysia. I'd be able to track those keywords across those markets. And what would I see from a dashboard point of view?
Yeah, so obviously we have kind of different levels of entry. We have just on a very basic level an alert service, which is a bit like Google Alerts. So obviously that's completely free entry. So you can obviously set up alert every time your brand is mentioned or a particular trend or whatever, and you can set those up so you get them either daily, weekly, or as soon as they happen. We also have the TalkWalker quick search element, which is kind of like our lowest kind of barrier to entry after the alerts, and that is essentially it's a really good way to just kind of keep to do some research essentially around your brand and your trends. So you can obviously, as I mentioned before, search for your brand, and then within that you will see we have kind of different widgets, as it were, so you can kind of dig down to different levels. So you can see initially the mentions and engagement and reach that your brand is getting on a given time period. So you could search for the last 7 days, the last month, 3 months, that sort of thing. And then we also identify things like kind of influencers, so the people who are talking about your brand or whatever you're searching for, the people who are talking about it most and get the most engagement. So that's a good way to kind of identify if you're looking to do maybe an influencer marketing campaign and you're looking for the right people to work with. It's a good way to kind of start your search essentially and just see who's talking about you, and then you can do a bit more research as to, you know, if they're talking about you positively, if they're working with your competitors, that sort of thing. Okay, so quick question about that, Sophie, then. Am I going to get the contact details of those influencers, or you see the hashtag, or you see their you would see the channel. Yeah, you'd basically see the channel in which they're mentioning you. So if they're tweeting about you, for example, it will show you the tweet. And again, with the kind of the quick search element, you can also look for, say, influencers. You can look at kind of demographics of the people who are talking about you. So looking at kind of the percentage split between female, male, the kind of the interests of those people, the occupations. So this information is essentially pulled from kind of public profiles, essentially. If if it was kind of, if you mention in your Twitter bio that you are a student or, that loves animals, then it's going to pull that information.
Right, right. Yeah.
That's how we know that you're a student. So just to reiterate, everything that, all the data that comes through TalkWalker is kind of publicly available.
Yes,
it's on the public domain. So, yeah.
And can you then give us an example of a client that's using TalkWalker and what they've done with the information that they've got then?
I can talk a bit about application in that sense. So we kind of work around, we call it our PMP framework. So it's our protect, manage, promote framework. So these are kind of like the three main areas or three main use cases that companies would use it. So to protect their brand, I mean, one example we do share often is around, I don't know if you remember, a year or so ago, I think it was Hong Kong Airlines accidentally sold their business class tickets at a knockdown price. It was
yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that sense, they were able to kind of detect that this was happening because they'd set up these alerts to kind of track all the conversations that were happening. So they obviously saw a peak in the conversation suddenly that was unusual, that they weren't expecting, and were able to dig in deeper and see that the conversations that were happening were around the fact that there was this great price on a business class.
How interesting, Sophie.
Yeah.
And so are you also tracking, for example, WeChat and Weibo then?
Yes, we do Weibo, definitely, and WeChat, I think, as well, yeah. Okay,
and then, so going forward then for TalkWalker, are you finding this sort of text, will there be video next? You say you've got a photograph search. Will there be a video search, do you think, next?
Yeah, so we do already do kind of in video images. So we can search, as I say, if people are posting videos on YouTube or whatever, and your logo would appear in the background of that video, for example, it would show as a mention.
Wow. So from a compliance point of view, this could be really very important for example, anti-piracy, counterfeiting, use of logos and so on, unlicensed.
Yeah. And also from another way people use it is around kind of sponsorship ROI. So particularly around sports matches, you can kind of see exactly how much exposure your brand is getting by the different channels that it's being, kind of the image, as it were, is being pushed through. Wow.
And then in terms of the kind of clients that you've got, I mean, you've mentioned an airline. Are they mainly multinational big companies? You've mentioned you've got an entry-level product and a slightly more expensive one at €6,000, but that doesn't seem to be that expensive for the service you're offering. So what's the profile of your clients?
Yeah, so it's a real mix of clients. Obviously, we have a lot of multinational brands that use our product, but also smaller. SMBs also can use it as well, because obviously there's different. I imagine they'll be using it in slightly different ways, but there's definitely different. I guess it's different benefits you can gain depending on whether you're a smaller company or a larger company as well.
Yeah, and then. One other question then is about if companies are looking to use the service, does it have any limitations in terms of access? Is it, for example, blocked in China, or is it globally available? Because, working in China, things like Google, YouTube were blocked.
As far as I'm aware, it's not blocked anywhere. I imagine just generally in China, obviously there are some, restrictions anyway in terms of the data that is publicly available. So as I say, because we work with data in the public domain, that's kind of the limitation in that sense. But yeah, I don't think there are any other kind of restrictions.
So Sophie, this sounds amazing. TalkWalker social listening. Is it accessible? How affordable is it for business owners?
So we do have obviously a wide clientele of large companies, small SMBs. So it's really different levels. There's different packages for different levels of entry, and it's we can talk to you and discuss based on your needs, kind of the best package for you, essentially.
Yeah. But I think you said, but I saw on the website you have a free trial to get those alerts, right? So that's a nice way to start.
Yeah, definitely. We have a couple of free products that kind of give you a really good insight into kind of the basics of what you can do. And then, as I say, we can, talk to you about your needs and kind of tailor something specifically towards that.
So, Sophie, what about as an agency like mine, EASTWEST PR? How would that work? Do I need one account for each client, or can I have one account for multiple clients?
No, so we have agency clients who, would basically purchase the package via us and are able to use it with their clients. Yeah.
Okay, so you can have any number of brands if you like. There's no limitation in terms of search terms or brands like there are on some platforms.
There are limitations within the package based on kind of data allowance, and so how many mentions you're searching and kind of historical mentions and things like that. So again, I mean, that's something that it needs to be really just discuss when you're setting up the package, exactly your needs, and therefore kind of, how you'd be using it, how much data access you'd need, that sort of thing. We're not the only company that offers this. We are definitely one of the more established companies on the market at the moment. I think where we really stand out is our artificial intelligence. Essentially, it's all developed completely in-house. So that means that any of our clients, if they, need something specific, or they are finding limitations within the product, they can really work with us, and we can kind of, essentially develop kind of in partnership with our clients. So in that sense, the product is always evolving, depending on what our customers need. And on that AI front as well, I mentioned earlier, we offer obviously like sentiment analysis. So that's kind of one of the areas where you can track your kind of brand reputation, and our sentiment analysis is one of the best compared to other brands, in terms of the accuracy and being able to detect, for example, sarcasm and things like that. So just basic text read by a kind of computer might not be able to detect sarcasm, but with our kind of AI technology, as it were, it has a more accurate reading in that sense.
So if people are interested in TalkWalker, where can they find out more about you and TalkWalker?
So they can head to the website. So it's www.talkwalker.com. And it's possible to sign up for a free demo there, so we can kind of take anyone through the product and really understand exactly how they'd be using it, so we can show the kind of the true benefits.
Thank you, Sophie Clark, who is in Luxembourg with a very nice British accent, but in Luxembourg, showing the EU is alive and kicking. And thanks for joining us on the Speak PR podcast and explaining about TalkWalker and social listening.
That's okay.
So thank you there, Sophie Clark of TalkWalker. Thank you for listening to this episode of Speak PR about social listening. And if you'd like to listen to more podcasts, you can find them on Spotify and iTunes and all other players. You can also get them at our website at eastwestpr.com. And so with that, I'd like to wish you the best of health, a profitable business, and that you keep on social listening.